Scan, the show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on the street. Honey, I'm your host, Brian Brushwood. First question comes from this guy who asks, hey, bro, why don't you put the blur to blur to I stop paying attention something other trick onto the Rogue's Ring? Look, man, that's a really helpful thing that you contributed, but it came after the Rogue's Ring came out. For those of you who don't know, the Rogue's Ring, of course, was an escape ring with a gimmick allowing you to escape from zip ties or from police-issued handcuffs, and it had wrapped around it hieroglyphs to spell out the methods for, 24 different scam school effects. And we got a bunch of great suggestions for what else should have been on the Rogue's Ring. Came a little bit late. So the question was, how can we get more hieroglyphs out there so that more of the scam school effects are covered in an easy-to-remember format? And then it hit us. We could come up with the classiest, the most useful, utilitarian, awesomest looking item that we've ever come up with, and this is it. It's the Rogue's Flask. I am not kidding you. This is the sweetest, most functional item that you're ever going to find on Scam Stuff. Everything else on Scam Stuff is some kind of clever hack or way to mess with somebody. This is just a really useful item that is super classy. It looks like it came time traveling straight out of the Prohibition era, and it's covered with 22 brand new hieroglyphs for scam school effects that we're going to teach you right now. First of all, the flask itself is an 8-ounce flask that has built into the front. You'll notice that there's a looks like a medallion on the front with a retro Brian Brushwood logo. Looks like it, as I mentioned, came right out of the 1920s. But the best part is that is not just a medallion. You pop it out with your hands, and guess what? Boom. It is a shot glass built into this thing. Now, if you don't drink, you can use it to store your fuel for fire eating, that kind of thing. I actually don't recommend that you pour the fuel into the actual shot glass unless you're doing the fire blast. If you were to keep a fire blast appropriate fuel in there, that would be good for sipping that kind of thing in there. But let me tell you, man, I am in love with the way this thing looks, and I want to tell you all of the Scam School effects you could do with the new hieroglyphs that are on this thing, available right now at scamstuff.com, starting right up at the top. You'll notice that we have 2 ones in a mirror image. This is a reference back to the episode where we had the Martin Gardner effect, where you can make what looks like a bunch of random cattle iron brands or hobo codes, basically. And they have to figure out which the next one is. The next one should look like some kind of pyramid, and it should jog your memory to about 250 episodes ago with the 6 matches 4 triangle puzzle. And of course, that depicts the actual solution for that one, which you shouldn't have any trouble with. The next one's kind of abstract. You'll see that it's a pole with something down at the bottom and like electricity bolts on there. That is a straw that is having the wrapper removed. And as the wrapper is removed, it is charging it with static electricity, which is what you learned in Static Friction, one of the best episodes we've ever done. I use that thing all the time, right to this very day. Next up, what do we got? This one is straight up. It depicts a coin balanced across a broken toothpick or matchstick. This is In the Bank, which we did a while ago. And of course, links to all of these are going to be right down below. This one is another abstract one. You got 2 boxes, one with a check mark, one with an X on there. These depict a box of matches, one orientation with it being correct, the other orientation flipped over with it being wrong. This is the tip over box episode that we did. Something that was meant to start off as a simple exercise. You set a box of matches on the side of a table, and you just make a game of trying to lift your hand up and see if you can get it to tip without flopping over. The way it works is that when they're oriented correctly, I believe with the matches, the open part facing up, you're able to lift your hand and it just goes boop and stays there. But if you have it flipped upside down, which again looks identical, it becomes pretty much impossible. You lift your hand, it wants to roll right on over and flop on down. What's next? We got, this next one is another Matchbox one. In this case, you have an arrow pointing down and you have it slightly opened on there. This is meant to be like a freeze frame of one of the episodes we did recently where the question was, can you drop a matchbox from a full 1.5 foot up and get it to land right on its side? And the answer is, if you pull out the matches a little bit as it lands, it will slide in, reducing that momentum. It won't bounce and it won't flop over as a result. Next up, we got a glyph that looks like there's an exclamation mark on one, and beneath it is what looks like a bunch of cards with a key on there. This, of course, is the key card effect. Still one of the most effective tricks we've ever taught on Scam School. One of the best secrets ever. There's multiple tricks you could do with the key card, but I leave it up to you to decide which one you want to do, whether you want to do it as a pulse effect, as we've taught before, whether you want to do it as a bar scam to score a free drink. The next card I turn over is going to be your card. But once you know the key card effect, just seeing this should be able to trigger your memory and remind you of all the effects you could do with the key card. Next up is another obvious one. You can tell that we're depicting a pint glass with a coaster and a cigarette and a coin on it, which of course you learned this scam is to get the coin into the glass. There's all different kinds of ways people try to do it, but of course the right way is to lean in, do a puff of air. The coaster will fly off to the side along with the cigarette, and the coin will drop right into the pint glass. The next one may look a little bit funky if you don't know what you're looking at. This is a depiction of the blowhard scam. You'll see this is a neck of a bottle of beer, and in there folded up is the bottle cap. And of course, the challenge is using just your breath. You have to blow the bottle cap into the bottle, and of course, people can't do it. Every time they lean in, they blow into it, the bottle cap falls right on out. The only way to pull this one off is if you use a straw to create such a tiny directed puff of air that it doesn't allow the air pressure to build up and blow it out, but instead you lean in, blast the air right on that puppy, and send it right into that bottle. Next up, we got another one of those abstract designs. You can tell there's a bottle, and you can tell there's something at the top, something at the middle, something at the bottom. We'll see if you can figure out what it is before I say it. But this one depicts the 3 match heads, the floating match heads in a bottle of water. But the way you did this one is you broke off 3 match heads, you put them into a bottle filled with water, and you gave it a little bit of time for them to mostly soak through. But after a little bit of soaking, these match heads would be filled with little vessels that could be controlled. They're vessels of air that could be compressed based on the density that was placed in there. So just by putting your thumb on the top, you could compress down, and the match heads would either sink to the bottom or they would go to the top, or if you got it just right, you'd be able to balance one at the top, one in the middle, one at the bottom. Check out that episode. That's a good one. Next up, if you're a new fan of Scam School, you should be able to recognize this one because these are the answers to 6 the hard way. You'll notice we have 0 through 9 with the exception of 2. And the reason is because 2 is so obvious, you shouldn't need a reminder for how to make 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. The rest of them, just to walk you through, you'll notice that there's a number, there's symbols around it. The symbols off to the right that are the small symbols indicate what the functions are you do with each of these. For example, you'll notice it says 0 factorial, and it says plus plus factorial. So that means 0 factorial plus 0 factorial plus 0 factorial would be 1 plus 1 plus 1, which would be 3. And you notice after all of that, there's a factorial. 3 factorial is 6. Same thing with 1 plus 1 plus 1 factorial equals 6. We skip 2, and you'll see it says 3, it says times, and then minus. So 3 times 3 minus 3 equals 6. Square root of 4 plus the square root of 4 plus the square root of 4, and on and on and on for each of those. The most complicated one is 8. Let me make sure I'm getting this one right. 8, see, this is what's great. I'm actually using the crib notes that this is built in for. It says square root of 8 divided by plus. What that means is 8 divided by 8 plus 8, which would be 9, because 8 divided by 8 is 1. 1 plus 8 equals 9. Square root of 9, then factorial on there. It all makes sense once you actually watch the episode and learn how to do it. Next up, we've got the setup, but not the answer for the fine dining scam. Now, if you saw the fine dining episode, the setup is you set a pint glass with a couple of quarters on there, you set a dime in the middle, and the challenge is to get the dime out. The solution for this one is to scratch your finger on the tablecloth, and it'll actually cause the dime to go walking right underneath. Now, the hope on this one is that just by seeing the setup, you would remember how this particular trick is done. And again, check out the episode for the specifics on all of these. Next up, we've got, this is a good abstract one. This one is, you'll notice that there's a snail-like shell swirl, and there's 7 in the middle and times 11 in that snail-like shell. Now, that's on purpose. That is specifically, you'll notice, to remind you of the golden rectangle and the way a nautilus is shaped, because this one is based on the Fibonacci-like sequence that we learned for one of the Math Whiz ones. What you do is you have people come up with 2 one-digit numbers, like 3 and 5, 8 and 7, 2 and 9, it doesn't matter. They add those up, then they add up the next two, the last 2 digits, then they add up the last 2 digits, and they keep on going to create a Fibonacci-like sequence. Again, watch the episode if you don't remember this one. But by the time they get to 10, you're able to look at that long list of nonsense characters and instantly tell them what the sum of all of them are simply by looking at the 7th number down and multiplying it times 11. We give you some hints on easy ways to multiply times 11. Make sure to click on the link right there in the show notes right now. But this one is beautiful and elegant, and you'll notice that there's an example down the side that says 4, 7, 11, 18, 29. That, of course, is meant to be an example to remind you 4 plus 7 is 11, 7 plus 11 is 18, 11 plus 18 is 29, and so on. That's the setup for that one. Next one is a very clever one. And first of all, I got to give a huge thanks to Brant Hughes. Gatawag in the chat is the one who creates all of these episodes. He's the one who came up with all of these symbols that look so good. This one you'll notice it says 3 times 6, ... There's a line underneath and it says 9 with pi spelling out the N in 9. This is a reference to the original Pi Day Magic episode. And the way that trick worked was that you had somebody pull out a calculator. You had them punch in a whole bunch of numbers, just multiply numbers. 2 times 8 times 3 times 6 times 5 times 2 times 9, and keep on going until they got a gigantic number. And the way the trick works is that somewhere along the line, they're either going to multiply times 9 or they're going to multiply times 2 times 6. Either way, they're going to end up with, even though it seems like a totally random number, it's going to be a number that is going to be a multiple of 9. And I don't know if you remember this from grade school, but any number that is a multiple of 9, all of the digits that make up that number will add up to be a factor of 9. So for that's why like 9 times 9 is 81, 8 plus 1 is 9, that kind of thing, just taken to an extreme degree. After they've created their giant big number, you have them select one of those random digits to be their secret number. They tell you all the other numbers, and just by keeping in mind that it's a factor of 9, you're able to guess from the other numbers what their secret number is. Again, watch the Pi Day Magic episode. Easily one of the best ones. Thank you very much again to Dr. James Grime out of Cambridge for putting that one together for us. Next up, we've got... Okay, this one looks like a weird die. You can see there's like 5 spots on a square here. That is not a die. That is meant to be a coaster. And those 5 spots are the places you can place your drink for the Code Drink episode. What you do is you have a friend, set down 5 different bottle caps, set something underneath one of them. They're over there asking people to lift up and remove an item or select an object that doesn't matter. But the way you secretly cue the answer to them is by placing your drink in the corresponding spot on the actual coaster. Next up, you've got, that looks like a sperm attacking a cube. That's not a sperm attacking the cube. That is a loop of string to be the Fishing for Sharks episode that we did, where you challenge somebody to lasso an ice cube, and the solution is to pour salt on it so it fuses on there. Next one, again, comes to us from the genius mind of Diamond Jim Tyler. His Bamboozlers series is incredible. This one, you'll see there are 4.5 circles here. Those 4.5 circles are meant to be pennies, and inside each of those circles is the part of the setup for it. The way you get ready for this is you have 4.5 pennies in your hand. 4 pennies and 1/2 penny physically cut in half. You ask someone to pick a random number from 10 to 99, any 2-digit number. You say whatever their number is. I want you to take those 2 digits and add them together. So in the example, you see 5 plus 5 from 55. Whatever that number is that added them together, subtract that from the first number. So 5 plus 5 is 10. 10 from 55 is 45. Great, now you got a new number. In your new number, take those 2 digits and add them together. So 4 plus 5 equals 9. And now you got your final number, okay? So the final number ends up being 9. You say, take that final number and divide it by 2. And then you say, holding your fist out, you say, would you be impressed if whatever your final number is was exactly how many pennies I had in my hand? And of course, they're going to say, yeah, that'd be freaking amazing, considering that it's 4.5. And then you'd be like, boop, and there it is, 4.5 pennies. This is a great, great episode. Please, please, please click on the end. There's a link right there. I'm pointing to the link, so click on that and watch that episode. And make sure to thank Diamond Jim Tyler for sharing that one with us. Next one up, you'll see a sequence of numbers. This, again, is from the same episode as the mirror image hobo code one. You'll notice it says 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. This, of course, is the beginning of the sequence where they need to come up with the next one in the code, because each line describes the one before it. I guess self-reflexive numbers is the way Brant described that one, and I rather like that. Next up, you'll see that there's what looks like a ghost. That is actually a napkin draped over a salt shaker on a table. So we did I believe the episode is called Through the Table, but it's the Salt Shaker Through Table Vanish. This one is super, super good. Very highly visual. Make sure to check that one out. This next one, he says 21 equals, and you'll see 3 dice with like arrows pointing to the equal sign. What that is explaining to you is that 21 equals the total value of the tops of 3 dice plus the bottoms of 3 dice, which of course is the method for use psychic dice to punk the drunk, I believe is the episode for that one. This one was a fun, easy one. You can it doesn't stand up to too much scrutiny, but it's a good idea that you could do totally impromptu. Next up, we've got, I believe this one was based on a Martin Gardner idea, but you see there are 3 sets of cards there. There are 3 cards, and they're each sets of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it says number of, and it shows a suit, and it says +5. What that is describing is we described this trick as the spelling bee is what we called it. And the idea is you have 3 piles of 3 cards each. You have somebody pick one of those. You set the piles together. Again, watch the episode to get the full example. And then it's one of the few episodes you could do on yourself because you just take the cards in your hand and then you just deal down. Like not even knowing what the card is, you're able to just deal down, let's say 5 of spades, right? You would deal F-I-V-E and then put them back together. O-F and then put them back together. S-P-A-D-E-S, put them back together. And then you would say any 5-digit word. Like, for example, it could be my name, Brian, B-R-I-A-N. Or it could be the word magic. Or you could do the word scams. Whatever it is, you do S-C-A-M-S. And then the next card you turn over, boom, would be the 5 of spades. And I just grabbed random cards, and look how close it was. It was the 4 of spades. That would have been awesome. All right, next up, we have, we're in the home stretch now. Just recently, we had an episode with the 1st to 15, where the method was to secretly play tic-tac-toe while the other person was playing some kind of counting game. And in this case, the configuration, this is the one that everyone said, you should put that on the ring. And of course, there wasn't room for it. You'll see it says 816-357-492, right? And in this case, you've got the answer all set up. That is the configuration for your secret tic-tac-toe grid in order to pull this one off. And finally, the last one looks like a coffee cup blasting into space. That is the coffee creamer flamethrower. One of the most dangerous and awesome tricks that we've done on the show. But look at that, man. 22 new hieroglyphs in there in the Rogues Flask, available right now. 8-ounce flask with a built-in shot glass. You can use it for everything from sneaking your drinks around, or if you don't drink, your fire-eating fuel. I'll tell you what, man. This is one of the most useful, utilitarian, elegant-looking things that we've ever come up with. And I think Brant just did a killer job on that design. I've never been prouder of anything more than that. But look, here's the thing. As you guys know, Behind the Scam is me talking directly to you guys, which means you got to talk directly to me. So do me a favor, hit me up on the social media, twitter.com/Schwood, facebook.com/Schwood, google.com/+Schwood. And if you haven't signed up, if you don't subscribe, if you don't follow, you're a bad person and you should be ashamed of yourself. The only way you can make up to it is head on over to scamstuff.com, scamstuff.com. Don't forget that Scam School is what you do at the bar. Scam Stuff is what you bring to the bar. I love you guys. And speaking of the bar, I feel like I got to take this for an inaugural run. It's not right that this is empty right now. I feel like hold on. I'm getting booze. Give me just a moment.